Hey guys, Sue's here. Welcome back to another What's for Dinner on Keto. This week we have 4 brand new easy keto meal recipes, including some yummy keto pizza. If you are new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button and joining the crew. And if you're already a member of the crew, welcome back. Let's get into the video, guys. I wanna catch the wave. So first up, we're gonna make some keto avocado pie. Preheated the oven to 350, and I'm grabbing a spring form pan. I'm not sure what size this one is. The recipe said no larger than 12 inches. I think that one's about 10 inches. In my food processor, I'm making the crust by mixing together 3/4 a cup almond flour, 1/4 a cup sesame seeds, and 1/4 a cup coconut flour with a tablespoon ground psyllium husk, a teaspoon of baking soda, a pinch of salt. To that, I'm also going to add an egg, 1/4 a cup of water, and 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And then I'm just going to pulse that together until it forms, like a kind of crumbly texture, and then forms itself into a ball of dough. Once I have that done, I just flip the dough out onto a greased springform pan. I was too lazy to line this with parchment, but you get a really better effect if you do that. I would normally take this crust and run it up the sides as well, but I was in a hurry to make this dinner this night, so I just mashed the crust all the way down in the bottom. Once it got done, I popped it in the oven for 15 minutes, and this is what it looked like when it came out. Now, the recipe called for 2 avocados. I'm using 1.5 because my whole reason for making this recipe was to get rid of and use up half of avocado I had in the fridge. So the other one I'm just cutting in half, and my pit popped out for me, which is cool. And taking the peeling off my avocado, and then I'm just coarsely chopping that on up. I just love the way the ingredients for this look. Now I'm taking a red hot chili pepper, and I should have worn gloves for this. Guys, if you make this at home, heed my cautionary tale and put on gloves. I got some of this juice underneath my thumbnail, and soap and water just don't get that out. I tried to suck it out, and then my mouth was on fire too, so there you go. I went ahead and chopped this up really super fine and added it to the avocado, just in a mixing bowl. To that, added 4 ounces of cream cheese that was kind of softened. I just pulled it apart and stuck it in there. The recipe called for fresh cilantro. I'm not a big cilantro fan, so I just added a tablespoon of dried cilantro and 1/4 of a teaspoon of onion powder, along with 1/4 of a teaspoon salt, a cup of mayonnaise. This is 2 different kinds mixed together here. Comment down below what your favorite keto mayonnaise is. Also added 3 eggs to this. And then I used a fork to go ahead and start mixing it up, just so I could really get those chunks of cream cheese really worked in and get all the ingredients mixed together really well. And here's what it looks like all mixed up. Then I just added about 1.5 cups of sharp shredded cheddar, the sharper the better, and moved on with a big kitchen spoon and just folded that in. And then I added it all to my crust, just kind of smoothed it out, and I always like to give it a little good shake and slap on the oven to make sure all the air bubbles out and it's nice and even. And then I popped it back in the oven on 350 still for 35 minutes. This is what it looked like when it came out. It looks so festive. I just love the colors of this. It reminds me a little bit of like a southern tomato pie, but obviously without tomatoes. I just used a butter knife to loosen the edges, and then unlatched the springform pan to take it off, and just sliced it up with a serving knife. You can see it cuts really well. It was a little difficult to get that first piece out perfectly, but we did accomplish it. And here it is all plated up, guys. This was super yummy. We ate it just like this, and it made an excellent kind of brunch for the rest of the week after we had it for dinner. Moving on to my favorite recipe of the week, keto pizza. So to start with, we're just taking a cup and a half of mozzarella cheese, and I'm doing this on super low heat on the stovetop with 5 tablespoons butter. You want the butter and cheese to melt together. Once it does start melting together, again on very low heat, you're going to add your dry ingredients: a half a cup almond flour, 1/4 a cup coconut flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, half a teaspoon garlic powder, and 1/4 teaspoon salt. I'm using this silicone spoon to just kind of knead it all together, and then I'm adding 1 egg. And then I'll get my spoon in there again and just work this all together. I made sure to take it off the heat before I added the egg, because you don't want it to end up like a scrambled or a fried egg when you're trying to make it into keto dough. Then I just flipped it out on a silicone mat. I did sprinkle this mat with a little bit of almond flour, and I'm just kind of going to continue to work the dough and then kind of put it into a disc shape and squish it down before covering it with parchment paper and getting out the rolling pin to just kind of roll it into a circular shape. I like my pizza crust kind of thin, so that's what I tried to do, is get the middle a little bit more thin. Then I just took the parchment paper off, and you see we get some really ragged edges here, and I'm just going to fold all of those up until they resemble pizza crust. And I did not worry about making this perfect or even. I am not going to eat the extra crust because I don't want all that excess carbs. And my husband loves the extra crust, so some pieces were thicker for him and some were thinner for me. I just slid the whole mat onto a cookie sheet, and then I popped that in an oven at 350 for 15 minutes to brown. While that was going, I started making some homemade pizza sauce. So to a blender, I added 28 ounces. That was just like 2 cans of diced tomatoes, 3 tablespoons olive oil, 2 tablespoons apple cider vinegar. And then to that, I'm going to add a dry seasoning mix of 2 teaspoons basil, 2 teaspoons oregano, a teaspoon garlic powder, a teaspoon onion powder, a teaspoon parsley, a teaspoon salt, and a half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1/4 teaspoon pepper, and then I am just blending that on up. Now for this recipe, I only used a half a cup of this sauce. I cannot remember how many portion sizes it made altogether, but what I did is I went ahead and got some freezer bags, and I freezed this sauce in half a cup portions and just labeled it that those were for a half a cup equals 1 pizza. And then I think I did 1 bag with like a cup of sauce in case I wanted to make something for the kiddos with it. So I have my crust out of the oven. Like I said, I added the half a cup of sauce, and then I just added your plain basic ingredients, just some mozzarella cheese and loads of it, and pepperoni. And then I just popped this back in the oven, still at 350 for 15 minutes. Now next time, I think I probably will do the last part of this at like 425 to get it a little bit crispier, but this was super, super good. And it was my first time making that sauce, and I am stoked about it. It was super yummy. Next up, I'm making some French garlic chicken, and we're going to use the Instapot for this. So to start with, I'm making a marinade with 2 tablespoons of olive oil in there, a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, a seasoning mix of 2 teaspoons herbes de Provence, a teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon salt, adding a tablespoon minced garlic to all of that. And then I'm just taking some boneless chicken thighs. I have 6 here, and I'm just coating them really well in that and then letting them marinate for half an hour. Then I'm taking my Instapot on saute and adding 8 cloves of chopped garlic. It's about 4 teaspoons if you have the pre-minced garlic, with 2 tablespoons butter. And then I'm going to put all of my chicken thighs in there and let them go ahead and brown. A recipe said to only brown them on one side, but of course I'm going to go ahead and brown them on both sides. And then I'm just taking a fourth a cup of water and mixing it with that leftover marinade. And I'm just going to pour all of that over the chicken for my extra fluid. And on high pressure, I am cooking that for just 5 minutes on high pressure, since I already browned the chicken. Then when it got done, I just scooped the chicken out and added 1/4 cup heavy whipping cream to the juice and whisked it up until it thickened a little. I should have done this longer. If I had an immersion blender, that would have been perfect if you have one. I didn't, and I'm lazy, so I didn't let it thicken. You can see how watery it is here, but it was super delicious. I'm not a fan of dark meat as much, but my husband was like, this chicken is off the chain, and served it with just steamed veggies. Next up, another fat kid meal, really. Took just 5 hot dogs out of that pack, chopped them, sauteed them, took about 1/2 of an onion and minced that up and browned it, and then added 1 pound of hamburger meat. Now, the recipe that inspired this, I will link down below as always. I cut it in half, and I didn't follow her cooking instructions at all because they just didn't seem efficient to me. So it just seemed really complicated. So this is the way I did it. On the side, while that all was browning, I took some Worcestershire sauce, a tablespoon, and added that to 1/2 cup of tomato sauce and a tablespoon of tomato paste. I also added a teaspoon chili powder and 1/8 of a teaspoon pepper, 1/4 of a teaspoon cumin. Of course, I added salt and pepper to my meat. And I whisked that all together, added my hot dogs back to the browned meat, and then poured my sauce over that. Mixed it all together, preheated my oven to 400, and then I just used a little circular casserole dish for this. Topped it with extra sharp cheddar cheese. I did not measure that. And I cooked it for 25 minutes and served it with some steamed green beans. So super, super easy, super, super yummy. The kids loved it. All right, guys, there you go. That's this week's What's for Dinner on Keto. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you're new here, please subscribe and join the crew, and we'll see you next week for another What's for Dinner on Keto video. Bye, guys.
Moment I can't forget, when everyone seemed to let go of integrity and pride. The cheese of a better deal, we sacrifice all